Size Room Episode 4. Man, this COVID-19 thing really has people in a global state of hysteria. I'm not saying it's unwarranted, but the sheer amount of terror this has put in the world is comparable to nothing we've seen before. It's crazy, like if someone had told me a couple years back that this was gonna happen in the near future, I probably would have clowned him for it and moved on. It's gotten to the point where you can't really go outside without wearing a mask. You can't sit there and tell me that's not something to be wary of. So in this time of utter madness and insanity, I thought it would be pretty fitting to watch a horror show. Yeah, that's right, you probably guessed it by now. I'm gonna be talking about the new season of Mob Psycho. Disclaimer, there's gonna be a large amount of spoilers, so yeah. But yeah, season 2 of Mob Psycho was a blast to watch. I thoroughly enjoyed every second of this anime, and if you haven't, you probably will too. Even the smallest bits of this adaptation were relatively entertaining, and I'm glad they were given the confirmation for a second season, because I think it's pretty breathtaking in its design. Also, if you're still lingering on trying to finish the first part because of all the other anime coming out recently, that's okay, but I suggest you finish it now, because the first part heavily ties into season 2. I'm contemplating doing a video on the first season, but I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. So let's discuss Ritsu for a little bit, shall we? Be honest, yo. Ritsu was not even that cool in the grand scheme of season 1. But that's why when he changed, it had such an impact. I won't ignore that he had some good moments towards the end of season 1, but he really started to shine throughout the second core, probably due to the discovery and awakening of his psychic powers. But it could have been also partially due to his personality, right? Okay, maybe it was all due to his power, but we don't have to talk about that. Ritsu was more of a cool, serious type of person who knew how to keep composure during most situations. If I got kidnapped, even after finding out everything was perfectly fine, I know damn well I'd be screaming my head off. But that's not the kind of person Ritsu actually was. After finding out about his brother's powers, you gotta respect him for not being over the top jealous. Nah, that was a lie. He was actually really jealous the whole time. The jealousy factor was actually insane with Ritsu. Like, it was really, really bad. It came to the point that even after he got his powers, he still hated Mob with every fiber of his being. That's a lot of damage. But Ritsu was a really good person, and another character that in my opinion was severely slept on. Not only did he give this series greater depth, but he also gave it a different point of view to look at, and that made me pretty content with how the series turned out. However, Ritsu wasn't really that relatable to me. He was very smart and thought a lot of situations through, which is a trait that for some reason skipped over me in the family tree. You were probably expecting me to talk about Shigeo next, but in the words of Pablo from the Backyardigans, expect the unexpected, because we're gonna talk about Dimple. So I kind of hated Dimple for a while, and I'm kind of ashamed of that fact. Dimple actually had the capacity to change, and I didn't really see that. Maybe because the writers started handing out character development like it was nothing. Because yes, the changes that Dimple went through were very well received on my end, and it brought out something in the show that I didn't know was actually there. Massive attention to side characters. In the beginning, Dimple was kind of introduced as that one annoying villain that stayed with Mob almost everywhere he went, in hopes to one day acquire his power through possession and restore the former glory that Shigeo had taken from him. But as time moved forward, that goal really changed. The Kageyama duo really seemed to grow on him, which is something I noticed and really paid attention to for most of the time. It really gave his character room for more growth, and his goal for taking Mob's powers seems to have faded out. Dimple was also a nice addition to the comedy aspect of the series. I mean, you kind of had to expect that. His name is Dimple. He really gave us some of the most funny scenes throughout both seasons, which is something most anime nowadays fail to do properly. What's really funny nowadays is the fact that the isekai genre has become a complete joke. I'll be honest, there's some shows out there that they could have done well with, but then you have shows like Isekai Cheat Magician. What are you doing? What is that? What is that? Sorry about that, I had a rant for a little bit. But I really loved what they did with all his character development phases and how they changed him throughout the second season. I'd be lying if I said I loved his character, because there's still parts about him that I'm kind of iffy about. I'm also not gonna say his fight scenes were garbage, because at one part where he took over Mob, hold on, let me just show you. You can't sit here and lie. They did very good with that scene. But yeah, Dimple was Dimple, I guess. There's not really much else to say about him. I know who he is. I have his backstory, I guess. And even if there wasn't that much of it, I don't really need any more. It's just Dimple. When it comes to character development though, there's really someone who had like all of it. Mob had bundles and bundles of it, and that was okay. It was exciting that he had more character development than the others. Because what do you know? He's the main character. It's not like his name is the title of the show or anything. I don't know what you're talking about. There's a lot to be said about Shigeo Kageyama. The one thing I really took away from him was how insanely socially awkward he was. A character quality that I can actually relate to for once. I know he's the main character and all that jazz, but they did astoundingly well with the portrayal of his powers in this adaptation. I mean, damn, you know how downright intimidating he looked during his 100% emotion scenes? You can't say that that's not beautiful. Look at that. Look at that. I absolutely adore the artwork. But the other thing that I took away from Shigeo's character that was particularly impressive was his version of not giving up, as small as it may have been. The writers kind of had to put an amount of perseverance in his personality, or a lot of people really just wouldn't have accepted him as a known shonen hero. But I admired how little it was. He wasn't some flamboyant person with a never give up mindset that everybody saw. You know, like some other familiar heroes. It was there, but it was rather faint. And that's what completed him on a whole for me. He was a genuinely kind-hearted person who was just painfully naive at times. Which is something you can't really fault him for because he was like, I don't know, like 13 maybe. And I really have to give him credit for not using his powers for literally everything. Y'all can probably guess that if someone like me was given a power that strong, I would be using it to be making bank every second. I would not control that power well. I really would not. Just another one of the many reasons why I would be terrible as a shonen protagonist. So yeah, there's many points on why a person should love Mob and who he was. And his 100% demon emotion question mark thing that I'm not concerned about in the slightest. And I hope they keep making episodes with him as the main character, though I would be pretty open to changes. Alright guys, I think it's time to talk about someone a little more intriguing in the power aspect of the show. Teruki Hanazawa. What can be said about Teru? I mean, he was a cool addition to the main protagonist cast, and he was pretty interesting overall, but what else? Who is Teru? Like, actually, I don't remember him having that much of a backstory to begin with. This is another one of those characters that I thought were really cool visually, but like, I didn't know anything about. I mean, that could be due to my lack of attention to detail, but it could also be due to the fact that nobody knows anything about him. I mean, it's not like he was some sort of villain that was hiding, or somebody that you weren't supposed to find out about until the end. That isn't to say you have completely zero knowledge about him, because there's parts of him that you find out about, and it's fine, I guess, but what else is there to say about him? He was funny, somewhat prideful at times, which ended up changing throughout season 2. But is that all there is to know about him? All I'm saying is that yes, he was a side character and he didn't need to be promoted to main protagonist, but I feel like if they showed more of him and who he was, it would have made the show a lot better. But they probably just intended for him to be a comic relief character, which is okay. He just felt severely slept on. Don't get me wrong, he had some really satisfying fight sequences, and his psychic energy tie sword was really underused in season 2. I'm not really gonna give him best boy because I didn't really relate to him that much, but he was a real eye-catcher and one of my favorite characters in this series. Yeah, that was pretty short. Sadly, there really isn't much to say about Teru besides the fact that he has a pineapple on his head. Well, now that that's finished, do you guys mind if I talk about a controversial topic for a quick minute? I'm pretty sure I heard a yes in there somewhere. Do y'all still think that even though Reagan took advantage of Mob in his naivety, he could still be forgiven and seen as a generally respectable character? Personally, I think he could. Now, before you cut my throat out, just listen to my reasoning behind it. Reagan was already put in a bad situation by working as a fake psychic. I will not ignore that that was due to his own personal problems, but he was already caught up in a web of lies. Generally, the average human is just prone to lie as an alternative to dealing with the consequences, and usually find themselves digging a deeper hole for their grave. There will always be a part of me that's upset about how he used Shigeo to basically give him his whole career in his psychic business, but I think he was also just trying to do what he could to survive, and we gotta make note of that. It's like if you were put in that situation and you didn't have any psychic powers or anything like that, what would you do? I don't have many things to say about Reagan. He gave the show great comedic depth, and there were some parts where he was kind of cool, I'll give him that. But he was just a guy on his own trying to make a living in the world. Not at all disregarding the fact that he lied to almost everybody, but I think we should all put ourselves in his shoes and kind of try to see it from his perspective. I actually kind of want to do a video about Reagan and who he was, but I'm not sure if I should go through with that. For now, I won't say anything else about him. So yeah, Mob Psycho was an amazing show that is is often looked over because of how strange its initial appearance is. But beauty is always in the eye of the beholder, and I beheld that the show was a visually stunning masterpiece. Definitely watch it. But besides that, that's pretty much it. Also, I would really appreciate it if you guys gave me some ideas on what to do with this channel, because as you can plainly see, I'm a genuinely boring person. So again, don't like and comment if you don't want to. The notion that you guys are watching this video is what gives me the incentive to keep going. So share this video if you can and help me reach 1,000. And if you don't want to, that is also totally fine. So just have a good quarantine and I'll see y'all later, I guess. Don't die!